Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So before we get started here, I just want to give you a really quick update and rundown on the Mech Arena Championship, which is fast approaching. Now, if you missed my previous video, that means that you missed my unveiling of my sponsored opportunity with Mech Arena, and also my cool unboxing of this care package and gameplay from the game, and kind of just showing you guys, getting you introduced to it. So if you missed my previous video, be sure to go back and watch my mystery unboxings to check that out. But if you do use the link in my description, comments, and also the link that you see on the video here, it'll bring you to this site. And just to give you guys an update, and if you didn't know right now, they're running an event where for every 100 million mechs destroyed in the game, they're donating $10,000 to the Able Gamers charity. And as of right now, they're just over 800 million mechs destroyed for $80,000 raised. So if you want to check out the game and play it, try it out, at least you're also knowing that you're helping donate towards the Able Gamers charity, which is really awesome. And if you come to the site here and scroll down, you can still sign up for the championship. You might even end up on my team. There's actually 2 slots for community members. You might end up on my team for the championship. You can fill out this form here to get your user ID. You just got to click your portrait in-game in the top left corner. Really easy to find. And then, if our team wins, we'll actually get to pilot a real mech in an all expenses paid trip, which is absolutely crazy. Could you guys imagine me doing a video where I'm piloting this crazy big mech here in real life? I don't know. Seems insane to me. So hopefully I do win the championship. If you want to watch me on December 16th, I'm going to be on Team Cheetah. So you can see here the brackets and the players. So if you want to tune into my Twitch channel, I will be streaming the championship and you can see how I do. Anyway, guys, I just want to give you a quick update. Encourage you to check out the game and hopefully see you during the championship cheering me on. And I hope you enjoy the game. Alright, now let's get into the topic at hand here and talk about my experiences with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. What did I like about them? What did I not like about them? It's been just over a year since they both released, and I was fortunate enough and lucky enough to be able to get both at launch, so I've had them for equal amounts of time. Was I mostly disappointed in one or the other? Was I overly impressed by one or the other? So let's start with the Xbox Series X, which I did get a little bit before my PlayStation 5, so it was like my first time delving into what used to be known as next gen and is now known as current gen. So what impressed me the most about the Series X? Well, since it was my first next gen experience, the first thing that really hit me was the load times, the snappiness of the menus. I mean, that to me still feels like one of the most current slash next gen things of both of these consoles. And when all of you that are waiting to get your hands on a PlayStation 5 or a Series X, when you finally get your hands on one of these things, that is going to be the first thing you notice: how quick games load up, how snappy the menus are, how quick things just move around in general. I mean, that felt really cool. I'm starting to take it for granted a year later. It's not quite as like hitting me in the face as much as it used to, because I'm starting to get used to it, almost like second nature. Like, oh, yeah, let's just at lightning speed browse through the Microsoft Store and check out trailers that load up within like a split second. So really cool in terms of the user interface. I've been really enjoying it on both fronts with both the PlayStation 5 and the Series X. Now, the Series X is a weird one to judge because there are not a lot of exclusive games on this thing. And yes, there's the argument about truly nothing is exclusive because you can play it on the PC. Let me just get this out of the way really quick. For me, I will always prefer a console experience. If I can kind of just sit back and have a dedicated console that I know I'm not going to have to upgrade for many years out, if I even decide to upgrade it when the Series XYZ, whatever the heck it is, comes out. Just knowing that I have a console that performs very nicely without need to tweak it or upgrade it over time for one set price, and being able to kind of just kick back, turn that thing on, and play it on my TV without any issues, that's the experience that I will always choose. So despite these games being available on what they're now calling, I think, PC Game Pass or whatever, to me, it's always about the home console experience. Pretty cut and dry, pretty clear for me. Now, the thing that disappoints me the most is that, once again, just like what happened with the Xbox One for me, there's not a lot of exclusives that really call out to me. However, there's enough of things that I'm willing to try and experiment with through Game Pass that makes the Series X really worth it for me. But you might be like, well, the Game Pass is not exclusive to the Series X. Well, you're right. It's on Xbox One. However, I never made that upgrade from Xbox One to the Xbox One X, so the leap from an OG Xbox One to the Series X was a huge performance leap, not just in load times, but also performance and graphics and visuals and, the 4K HDR stuff now. So going from Xbox One to Series X was worth it for me alone. And being able to jump around and sample certain games that normally I would never come within 5 feet of paying 50, 60, $70 in some instances for these games, being able to play them for free on Game Pass. For example, I do intend to get around to playing the Halo Infinite campaign. I probably would not have bought Halo Infinite for the 60 plus whatever bucks it would have cost me to buy a physical copy, but since it's on Game Pass, I try it. Another example would be something like some of the indie games that they release on there. I recently played a game called XO1 that was something like $20. Maybe I wouldn't have bought it, even though I probably would have. Just being able to play that for free, like a cool little indie artsy game that normally would have cost $15, $20. You beat it in 2 hours and you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to touch that game again. Well, guess what? You didn't really pay for it, so it's really nice. Yeah, there's a price with Game Pass, but hey, there's a price for these kind of services, right? So it's like things aren't technically free, but they kind of are, but they're not. You know what I'm talking about. So Game Pass brings incredible value to me that really makes me get a lot of mileage out of my Series X, but it doesn't stop there. The one thing that I've been most impressed with the Series X is backwards compatibility. And this is something that I think a lot of people are really underestimating, because you look at something, say, like Ridge Racer 6, which recently became backwards compatible. That game went from being a $10 game to now like a $50, $60 game. And you might be like, well, it's not really doing anything to the frame rate because the game was already 60 frames. Yeah, it's doing auto HDR, but okay, I don't have a 4K TV. But the thing that's really substantial, and I did a test on this because I used to play a lot of Ridge Racer 6. I timed it. I checked one of my old videos of when I was playing this game. Load times are drastically improved, and it's noticeable in a game like Ridge Racer 6. For example, in a load screen where you're loading up a race that would normally take 16, 17 seconds, the Series X is knocking that down to the 3 to 4 second realm. A load screen that would normally take about 6 to 7 seconds is getting knocked down to a second or under. I mean, these load times are incredibly fast. That's just one example. RPGs. The first thing I did when I got my Series X, the very first thing I did before anything else, was I tested backwards compatibility. I tested Lost Odyssey, a game that is known for really, really long load times. When you get into a battle and the screen transitions, there's like this big sweeping panning camera. In the Series X, it almost completely eliminates that, and it really speeds up these games that used to be really hampered and brought down by long loading times to levels that are kind of just unheard of for games on the Xbox 360. So RPG fans, if you don't have a Series X yet, you have a lot to look forward to on that front. Or people that, just, value their time and not looking at loading screens all the time, you have a lot to look forward to. Also, frame rate. Oh my God, you guys. Recently, I took a look at the newly added games, the last batch of games that they added for the backwards compatibility for the Series X, where they added a bunch of Sonic games and whatnot. And of course, I booted up those Sonic games and tried them. Unbelievably awesome to be able to play a game like Sonic Unleashed that used to be, really shaky in the frame rate, especially on console, like 360. It was rough. To be able to play that in almost rock steady 60 frames a second, it was beautiful. Absolutely stunning. And as well as Sonic Generations, that game running in 60 frames also looks just flat out amazing in a lot of instances, and it brings such a nice breath of fresh air and revives these games. You know how they just brought out Sonic Colors Ultimate and charged you money for like the physical version, $40 or whatever they were charging for it? These 360 backwards compatible Sonic games feel potentially even better than Sonic Colors Ultimate Upgrade did, that they're charging you money for, and you're getting these just for free to play as a backwards compatible game, obviously if you own it already. So it's like, man, it's a real shame that we're probably not going to see any more backwards compatible games added. However, there are tons that benefit from added frame rate, auto HDR, faster load times. So if there's one thing that has really stood out to me about the Series X above anything, it is the backwards compatibility lineup. I've been absolutely blown away by it. You might be like, well, that's just not enough for me to upgrade yet. I'm still pretty happy with my Xbox One or my Xbox 360. I get it. Eventually maybe some more games will come out for you on Game Pass that makes it a bit more enticing. But just the combination of Game Pass and backwards compatible games and the odd, exclusive here and there. I mean, the Series X for me it actually exceeded my expectations in terms of the overall value and time that I have gotten from it so far. So on the Xbox side of things, I am definitely not impressed by, once again, the lack of exclusives that really call out to me, but I do like that they get timed exclusives and give me a reason to be like, yeah, I like owning an Xbox because I get to play this game that I wouldn't have been able to play, for a few months because they paid a lot of money to get it as a timed exclusive. It is what it is. I'm always excited to play new games, so if I can play a game months ahead of time Whereas if I didn't have a Series X or something like that, I wouldn't. I'd have to wait. It's just another nice added feature. So Xbox, I'm happy with it. I look forward to what's coming with Game Pass. They're at the point now where they're just adding games out of nowhere without even announcing them. So it's sort of like one day you can turn on your Xbox and boom, there's the next latest and greatest AAA game that is just suddenly on there for you to play. So if you are getting Series X, I would only recommend it, or if you're on the fence, I'd only recommend it if you also plan on getting Game Pass, unless you have a huge 360 collection and you get a lot of value out of the backwards compatibility. All right. Now let's move on to talking about the PlayStation 5. Once again, I did have the PlayStation 5 for launch. Super thankful for that. I also have to give a shout out to Comeback Kid, who gave me a heads up. I tried to pre-order my PlayStation 5 live on stream. It sold out instantaneously. And Comeback Kid in my Twitch chat was like, hey, they just restocked it on, I think it was like Walmart.com. He's like, hey, I just refreshed and it's back in stock. I'm like, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. Sure enough, I go back on there. I think it was Walmart. I refreshed. It was in stock. I ordered it, and like right after I placed my order, it was sold out again. So I've always been really thankful for that, because honestly, I don't think I would have been able to get a PlayStation 5 if it wasn't for that. So thank you, Comeback Kid. But PlayStation 5, what have I been least impressed with? The thing I've been least impressed with is, well, first of all, the availability of this thing killed one of the coolest games on that console. So let's start with that, right? Let's get it out of the way. The PlayStation 5, really hard to get. And it's bad because certain games that, if this thing was more widely available or had a better planning of its release, would still be thriving. So Destruction All-Stars, a game that they made free with PlayStation Plus for 2 months. The game that's like a really over-the-top, almost like Fortnite-looking Twisted Metal car combat game. I'm going to tell you guys, that game was so much fun. I played it for like about 2 weeks when it just came out and had an absolute blast with this game. However, nobody has PlayStation 5s. Nobody can get their hands on them. So, once the initial player base died down, the game just was left for dead, and there's nothing that they can do about it because people still can't get their hands on a PlayStation 5. How do they remedy this? When, in a year or two from now, when PS5s are potentially a bit easier to get, make that game bundled with every PlayStation 5. Put Destruction All-Stars as a pre-downloaded game in every PlayStation 5, or just flat out make that sucker free. Make it a free-to-play game so everybody will download it, because it's such a cool game that does kind of feel like a next-gen game. It's got some crazy animations, crazy particle effects. I do encourage you to check it out, and I checked the game recently, but it's just completely dead. There's nobody playing it. You can't matchmake. It's all AI, and it's really a shame, and I hope Sony does something about that, because it's a great exclusive experience for the PlayStation 5. Other things I'm disappointed with. Not enough games as of right now are taking advantage of the DualSense controller. For those of you that forget, the DualSense has special vibration features where you can like feel the raindrops in your hand, for example. You can feel, it feels like whatever is happening in the game, it feels like it is affecting your hands in a realistic way. So if you get hit in the side of the head or something with a club, it feels like in your controller you're getting smacked on the side of the head with a club, for example. It's really hard to explain this without you actually, trying it yourselves. And then there's the adaptive triggers, which some games do use, but, without the DualSense, it doesn't feel quite as nice, where you have to press a little bit harder for the guns to fire, or like to swing your weapon. A lot more games make use of that, but a lot of third-party developers are really just ignoring DualSense altogether, and it was one of the things that I was most excited to try on a PlayStation 5, but it seems like most devs just don't care. Sony is certainly not saying, hey, if you make a game for a platform, you have to use DualSense. It's not something that they're, mandating like, say, the Wii used to do, where it's like, all right, if you want to make a game for a platform, you need silly waggle controls or something. Or a DS game, you got to have something to do with the touchscreen. There's none of that going on, so it's very underutilized, and I do feel like it's one of the strongest things about the PlayStation 5, and, some of the advantages that it has over the Series X, despite the Series X having really wonderful vibration functions. When you play a game like Astro's Playroom, which, by the way, for me is like an insane highlight of this current gen of hardware, Astro's Playroom for me was probably my game of the year last year. I mean, it was such an amazing experience as a platformer fan, as a PlayStation fan. The DualSense capabilities in that game were just like mind-blowing. Adaptive triggers, the most insane rumble you have ever felt in your hands for a game. I mean, it was just a magical experience. And any of you that do get a PlayStation 5, without a doubt, the first thing you should play is the free Astro's Playroom that comes with every PlayStation 5. Trust me, even if you're not in the platformers, if you are any semblance of a PlayStation fan, you absolutely need to play Astro's Playroom. Trust me. The only other game that really made sense of DualSense was Returnal, and Returnal still to this day, despite still having not finished that game because I just wasn't really prepared for how hardcore of a game that was going to be and how much time commitment it takes, because it is a very difficult roguelite/roguelike style third-person action shooter. But Returnal is still one of the most memorable games that I have played in the past year because um, it was such an exhilarating experience having the sense of DualSense, as well as the adaptive triggers and the sound design in Returnal. There is 3D audio in that game. I don't have the 3D PlayStation headphones, but you can still kind of hear it with just normal headphones. I would get done with a boss fight in this game, and my hands were like shaking because of how just exhilarating and exciting and how much adrenaline is pumping through you in these fights because of how difficult the game is, how well designed it is, how good the sound design is in the gameplay. Returnal is without a doubt one of the surprises of this current generation of consoles, and I definitely encourage any of you that get a PlayStation 5 to try this game. It's not for everybody, but you should definitely try it. Between Astros and Returnal, and that's about it. I haven't really played too many other games that use DualSense to its full capability, so that is disappointing. But also, it's helpful because if games do, eventually start coming out for the PlayStation 5 that make use of DualSense as much as those two games did, I'm really excited for it because I feel like it really does add to a feeling of games that we've never really had before. We've always kind of taken Rumble for granted. I mean, yeah, with the N64, the first time you stuck that Rumble pack in there, it was kind of cool to play Star Fox and have your controller shake every time you got hit. And then, as time went on, generations went on, it was kind of just like, some people just turned off Rumble because they didn't like it or they wanted to save their wrists, because Rumble is actually really not good for your wrists in the long term. But I do encourage you, please try out the DualSense. Don't turn off the Rumble. Don't avoid games that use that to its fullest. The adaptive triggers can be a little gimmicky at times, but the Rumble, I'm telling you guys, that's where it's at. Games like Ratchet and Clank, I guess, are another decent Rift Apart, make really good use of the adaptive triggers. The DualSense in that is pretty good, but is not on the levels of Returnal or Astro's Playroom. So now that we've kind of gotten some of the games out of the way that I wanted to talk about, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 in a more general sense. First of all, this thing is huge, and it acts as like a space heater. Let me just say, it's winter, winter's coming, winter's going to be really cold. If I have my PlayStation 5 on by me, that thing is like, it's like a portable heater, essentially. Well, not portable, but you know what I mean. So if any of you want to warm up your game room this winter, get yourself a PlayStation 5. It's a $500, $600, $700 heater, but trust me, that thing gets pretty warm. The controller itself is okay. I definitely prefer the DualSense, the DualShock 4 over the DualSense. And in terms of the UI, I think it's pretty clean. I think both the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 have really good UIs, good, nice and snappy, easy to navigate. I kind of prefer the Xbox though, because the way that you look at games in the storefront, they will show you a gameplay video that is prominently displayed without having to do any extra clicking, whereas on the PlayStation 5 you have to dig a little bit to find some gameplay, or in some cases no gameplay for a lot of their games. So the UI is both pretty nice on both storefronts. The the thing about PlayStation is I do have a ton of indie games and a ton of PlayStation 4 games that I do make use of with backwards compatibility, and it's not as impressive as the Series X's enhancements, but I will say that I've been pleasantly surprised by obscure games like Godzilla on PS4 running in 60 frames, Life of Black Tiger running in a silky smooth 60 frames. One of my one of my favorite terrible games, to see that game running at 60 frames is very nice and surprising. So most of the games that I've tested on there run very nicely. The one thing that I'm disappointed in Sony though is, and I don't know what they got cooking, but I wish they'd continue supporting games like their PS2 and PS4 games. Games like Okage just flat out don't work, right? They just don't work at all. So I really hope they're not abandoning their PS2 on PS4 on PS5 compatibility, because that's one of my favorite things about the PlayStation 4, where there's those PS2 supported HD games, and I hope to see them continuing to release them. But as we have seen lately, there's a lot of rumors of like, hey, Sony might be coming out with a Game Pass competitor where it's going to combine PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, which PlayStation Plus really disappointing as of late, let me say. PlayStation Now, I've tried. It's actually not bad. I do encourage you to try it, and if they do merge the two of them together, I think it's going to be a lot of value for people that have PlayStation Plus. But the only reason I kind of keep PlayStation Plus these days is for the occurrences where I do want to play a game online. But the one thing that I do want to talk about that I recently played that really gives me hope for the future of both the PlayStation 5 and the Series X is I played the Matrix Awakens Unreal 5 Experience tech demo. Oh my goodness, you guys. This is one of the most insane things that I have both seen and played in the video game side of things in a very, very long time. Now, in the description, I will have a link to my VOD, my gameplay channel, where you can check. I played it for almost 2 hours. I played this Matrix Awakens demo. And at first I was like, wow, this looks really good. It's cool and all. And then I just started getting more and more invested and involved and deep diving into this thing, checking out all the different filters and the speed at which you run through things and just the ray tracing. My goodness, like if you have not seen this Matrix Awakens demo, which is not on PC. I'm not sure if they're going to bring it to PC or when they're going to bring it to PC. Right now, it's only on current gen consoles. If you haven't seen this, check out my video of it. It absolutely blew my mind. It makes me really hopeful for this current gen, at least with the Unreal 5 engine. Now, it is a little shaky. Doesn't run at smooth frame rates when things are crowded on screen, but just the sheer spectacle of this game. I mean, I would fly around. I'd take the camera and fly to a skyscraper, and they have architecture that is like perfectly rendered all around the game world. So there's like different architecture on these different things that normally you would never see. You go to the roof of a building and you can read the signage of a building that normally you would never even be able to reach. But the only reason I reached it is because I took my camera and flew it up there. It's like you can read every, like the fine print on a voltage sign on the top of a skyscraper. I mean, it was surreal. It was awesome. And if this is going to be the future of the current gen with the Series X and the PlayStation 5, I know you PC players, I mean, this is like old news for you, right? Like you're really expensive PC machines. But for us console players, this is really exciting. And I would encourage any of you that get one of these consoles to try this demo yourselves or watch my video if you just want to kind of get a taste for it. But it makes me excited. It makes me glad that I have these consoles, and can't wait to see what they do. And that's just the Unreal Engine. There's going to be other engines coming, but this is just a taste and a sample of what we thought when we first saw the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, and we saw these tech demos, and our minds were racing, like what will be possible with this new tech. This is the first big, huge step towards what's to come in the future. So it was very reassuring. Because let's face it, when we got our hands on the Series X and the PlayStation 5, it felt like one of the smallest steps from previous gen to current gen. Going from PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to the Series X and the PlayStation 5 was a pretty small step. Let's be real here. Going from something like the PlayStation 2 to the 3 or the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4, those were pretty noticeable leaps, whereas this one was not quite as crazy. But this tech demo, it's about to make you have to lift your leg up a heck of a lot more for the step of this gen, and it got me excited. I hope it gets you guys excited, and I hope you didn't mind my rambling here. I don't do any editing or rehearsing for this, so I'm sure I missed some points that I wanted to bring up. So let me know. Is there anything that you guys were really impressed by, really not impressed by? Maybe something that I forgot to bring up that I can maybe answer for you in the comments or something. Leave a comment below. Let me know. Yeah. That's going to do it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where this current generation goes. See you in the next video.